Dustin approached the stone statue, sinking to his knees with a resounding thud. His eyes were slightly reddened and his lips trembled. He went on, "It's hard to believe that 10 years have passed in the blink of an eye. I've been a bad son. I regret not visiting you for such a long time." He added, "I made a vow, swearing to find the culprit and avenge you. Until then, I couldn't face you. It's been 10 years, and now the mastermind is defeated. The accomplices from that time are either dead or incapacitated, with only a few remnants left." Dustin promised, "I promise you, Mom, I will eliminate those who harmed you. I'll make those beasts pay the price in blood." Dustin quietly reflected on memories of his mother as he bowed his head. With the identification of the instigator, Alaric, and the dissolution of Dragon Guard, only Reagan and Cinna remained. Once this remaining threat was eliminated, he would have avenged his mother. "Mom, I really miss you," Dustin whispered, gazing at the stone statue before him. In his recollections, Rufus was always engrossed in state affairs, seldom returning home. It was Alba who worked tirelessly to raise him. During his rebellious childhood, Dustin often perceived his mother as being too strict. He occasionally earned a few cane lashes for minor missteps. Now mature, he understood his mother's well-intentioned discipline. As the crown prince of West Lucosia, born with a silver spoon, he could have easily devolved into a pampered playboy without his mother's guidance. She had nurtured him in martial arts, military strategy, medicine, and even some divine esoteric techniques. She not only gave him life, but also paved the way for his future. Dustin sighed. Grace let out a soft sigh as she watched the grief-stricken Dustin. She wisely chose to give him space. She understood that a mother and son needed time too. Converse after being reunited after many years. An hour later, Dustin finished pouring his heart out. After taking 3 deep bows before his mother's statue, he finally stood up. The sky had darkened, and only a few scattered figures roamed the vast cemetery. They were occasionally accompanied by mournful cries. "Sorry for keeping you waiting," he said, regaining composure as he walked over to Grace. "No worries." She shook her head slightly. "I've always admired your mother. Seeing her statue here is an honor for me. It's getting dark. Let's find a place to stay." Dustin changed the subject. "I've arranged that already with an old mansion to the west of the city. Our cover is that of siblings returning to their hometown. As long as we don't draw too much attention, no one should suspect us," Grace informed. "Sounds good." He nodded. Dustin was impressed by Grace's efficiency. He admired her thorough consideration of every detail. As the two were preparing to leave the park, a mournful wail suddenly reached their ears. "Dad, why did you have to leave us so soon? If you hadn't fallen on the battlefield and lost your life, our family wouldn't have endured such disgrace after your death." "Dad, those bullies not only crippled my leg, but also killed Mom and disgraced my sister. If you're watching from above, punish those bastards." The cries were loud. They were filled with despair and resentment. Dustin and Grace exchanged glances, then approached the source. In front of a general's grave, a young man in his 20s kneeled, crying bitterly. He was covered in wounds. His left leg was already broken and wrapped in thick bandages, and he looked severely battered. Dustin's gaze lifted as he looked at the tombstone in front of the young man. His eyes involuntarily narrowed. Dustin raised an eyebrow as he took in the information on the tombstone. He was surprised that the name etched on it belonged to Leo Ashen, the former vice general of the renowned Black Dragon Army's Vanguard. The Vanguard Army was composed of elite soldiers that were chosen with meticulous care. Attaining the rank of vice commander required an exceptional level of prowess. In Dustin's recollection, Leo was renowned for his inherent strength and ferocity on the battlefield. He had a distinguished career and had made significant contributions to Rufus' efforts to stabilize West Lucosia. Leo's sacrifice resulted in a posthumous promotion, securing the position of Vanguard Army General-in-Chief. The grandeur of his funeral underscored his importance. Leo's descendants had enjoyed privileges and benefits. Hence, it was perplexing to witness the family in such dire straits. This raised the question of what had transpired. Dustin was intrigued. He approached slowly, eager to unravel more about the situation. "Who's there?" Sensing movement, the young man at the grave turned with a wary expression. Dustin was quick to diffuse the tension. He assured the man, "Don't be nervous. We're here to pay respects to our loved ones like you." Pay respects. The young man relaxed slightly but maintained a cautious demeanor. Dustin explained, "We heard some commotion and came to check. Apologies for the emotional outburst earlier. I appreciate your understanding," the young man said, extending an apology. "No problem at all. Emotions can be overwhelming." Dustin nodded. The discussion then turned toward the tombstone. Dustin feigned surprise. "Wow, isn't this the renowned General Leo Ashen's grave? Are you, by any chance, his descendant?" "1. I'm Lucas Ashen, and my father is Leo Ashen. Do you happen to know him?" the young man asked cautiously. Expressing genuine admiration, Dustin acknowledged. General Leo's accomplishments are widely recognized. His reputation is known far and wide. Who in West Lucosia doesn't know of him? Among the generals, he's the one I admire the most. While the sentiment might sound somewhat complimentary, it held complete truth. The generals of West Lucosia sacrificed generously for the nation, and Dustin genuinely admired that. "My father did have a glorious past, but it's unfortunate that he left us too soon." Lucas sighed deeply. "Mr. Ashen, as a descendant of General Leo, you should have rightfully enjoyed the glory associated with him. Why has it turned out this way?" Dustin inquired. "It's those heartless bullies." Lucas began to curse, then seemed to hesitate as he recalled something. He chose not to elaborate. "Mr. Ashen, I have immense respect for General Leo's character. If you ever face any challenges, don't hesitate to inform me. I have considerable connections in West Lucosia and should be able to offer assistance." Dustin said, "It's useless. Those bullies have both power and influence. Their backing is formidable. You can't beat them." "Just forget about it," Lucas said bitterly as he shook his head. "Even if I can't handle it, isn't the Prince of West Lucosia there for such matters? Their influence can't possibly overshadow the West Lucosian monarchy, can it?" Dustin asked. Lucas wore a mournful expression. "It's not as straightforward as you might think. Those bullies have deep ties with high-ranking officials and the West Lucosian monarchy. It's not just socially, but their interests also intertwine. No one is brave enough to touch them." Dustin frowned. Shouldn't the prince take action against such individuals? Considering Rufus' character, it was highly unlikely that he would tolerate such incidents. Lucas shook his head. "The prince is overwhelmed with his duties, and these corrupt officials cover up such ugly deeds. The prince is unlikely to be aware, let alone have the chance to seek justice for us. I never imagined West Lucosia would deteriorate to this extent," Dustin remarked, his expression darkening. As the crown prince of West Lucosia, Dustin found himself deeply angered as he witnessed the descendants of once respected heroes being subjected to oppression. Their pleas even fell on deaf ears. Even someone like Lucas, a general's son, had not been spared from such hardship. This grim reality hinted at the broader suffering endured by ordinary people. Present-day West Lucosia isn't the same as before. Lucas sighed. He went on, "The prince is aging, and many matters slip beyond his direct control. Corrupt officials exploit this, and what seems prosperous on the surface conceals internal corruption. Incidents like these are becoming all too common." Dustin adopted a serious expression. "Mr. Ashen, I can't turn a blind eye when faced with such injustice. If you're in trouble, speak up. I'll ensure justice is served for you." Lucas paused, reflecting on his next words, while he could feel the determination radiating from the young person across from him. The apprehension of burdening them lingered heavily in his thoughts. "Mr. Ashen, no need to worry. My friend wields considerable influence in West Lucosia. If you speak up, we can certainly help. But if you remain silent, we can't assist. This is your only opportunity, Grace reassured him. Lucas nodded after some contemplation. With no other options, he felt compelled to take this chance. He hoped for some divine intervention in this Memorial Park encounter. All right, I'll talk. Lucas inhaled deeply before recounting the torment. He continued, Our trouble stems from Russo Verne, a profligate with strong ties to the influential Verne family. He's backed by a group of privileged individuals, collectively forming the Hero Alliance. Their influence is unparalleled in the city, creating a reign of terror where no one dares to oppose them. He added, Some time back, Russo fixated on my sister. He relentlessly pursued her for her hand in marriage. Faced with her resistance, he resorted to coercion and enticing tactics. 3 days ago, my anger got the best of me as I witnessed Russo harassing my sister once more. I landed a punch. Lucas recounted, that same night, he orchestrated an arson attack on our home. The flames claimed my mother's life, and I endured a brutal beating. Worse, my sister was abducted and subjected to unspeakable humiliation. Her fate remains unknown. Russo even threatened that if I reported him and took legal action, my entire family would meet a grim end. These people have abandoned all moral compasses. He concluded, his eyes ablaze with fury and bitterness. He detested Russo and his gang of oppressors. His sense of powerlessness intensified the pain of failing to shield his loved ones. Grace, her countenance now icy with anger, remarked, committing murder, arson, and kidnapping innocent women, these villains know no bounds. Dustin's expression turned notably grim as well. He approached Lucas with a determined demeanor. He then offered a helping hand to assist Lucas to his feet. Mr. Ashen, you can trust me. I'll take care of this situation. I'll ensure that these perpetrators face the consequences they've earned. Dustin's pledge stirred a deep sense of gratitude within Lucas. Lucas said, If you can genuinely assist in rescuing my sister and seeking retribution for my mother, I will forever be in your debt. I'm more than willing to repay your kindness in any way possible. He felt overwhelmed and instinctively inclined to bow. Interrupting the gesture, Dustin earnestly declared, Mr. Ashen, there's no need for such formality. When faced with injustice, it becomes our duty to step in. No resident of West Lucosia would stand idly by in the face of such wrongdoing. Mr. Ashen, this isn't the place for discussion. There's a coffee house outside the Memorial Park. Let's head there to strategize, Grace suggested. All right. Lucas nodded. Lucas used a cane for support as he left the Memorial Park with Dustin and Grace. They arrived at a coffee house named Aroma Haven Cafe. The coffee house had 2 bustling floors. The first was a hub of activity, coffee, entertainment, and music. It created a lively atmosphere. The second floor was quieter and offered more privacy. Dustin opted for a private room, and the trio settled in. He ordered coffee and some exquisite pastries. Mr. Ashen, to understand the situation better, I need to ask you a few questions, Dustin said, extending a cup of coffee to Lucas. Parched from the emotional recounting, Lucas eagerly drank it. He responded, Feel free to ask. I'll tell you everything. Good. Do you know where Russo is currently? Dustin inquired. Russo's unpredictable. He's often found in places like nightclubs, bars, and KTV joints, Lucas shared. Then he recalled, Oh, I remember. Russo owns a bar called Russo Lounge. He hangs out there, socializing and engaging in shady deals. Russo Lounge? Dustin nodded. And how is your sister doing now? Do you have any information about her? At the mention of his sister, Lucas tightened his grip on the cup, revealing a mix of sorrow and anger. Since they abducted my sister, her whereabouts remain unknown. I've tried asking friends, but once they hear Russo's name, they become too scared to be involved with me. It seems that Russo indeed has quite a reputation. Mr. Ashen, stay calm. I'll do my best to rescue your sister, Dustin assured. Dustin turned to Grace. PRI Grace, dispatch someone to Russo Lounge. Let's check if Russo is hanging around there. No problem. Grace nodded and rose from her seat. She exited the room to coordinate with the undercover agents. Mr. Reese, considering Russo's influence, are you sure about this? Lucas cautiously asked. Mr. Ashen, don't worry. Regardless of Russo's influence, justice will prevail. Once we rescue your sister, I'll report this to the Prince of West Lucosia. He will ensure justice is served, Dustin replied earnestly. That would be fantastic, Lucas said with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Lucas felt that the person before him displayed remarkable confidence. He was brimming with assurance. He thought that even without directly opposing Russo, there was surely hope for the Ashen family with the influence of Celestria. Just conveying their plight to the prince might be their salvation. Grace interrupted, entering the room. We've found him. According to our sources, Russo is indeed at Russo Lounge. Good, let's go there now. Dustin stood up, ready to leave. I'm coming with you, Lucas said, trying to keep up despite his limited mobility. Mr. Ashen, since you're not in the best condition, rest here. We'll inform you immediately once we have any updates, Dustin suggested. But Lucas hesitated. Mr. Ashen, don't worry. I'll keep my promise to you, Dustin reassured, patting Lucas on the shoulder. All right. Lucas nodded, acknowledging the reality of his ailing leg. Joining the action in his current condition would be more of a hindrance than help. He'd end up a liability. By the way, Mr. Ashen, do you have a photo of your sister? Let us take a look to avoid any confusion, Dustin said. Sure, here it is. Lucas swiftly retrieved his phone and presented a photo of him and his sister. Dustin nodded. Unquestionably, Lucas's sister possessed beauty-fair skin, a charming visage, and a radiant smile that exuded vibrancy and cheerfulness. Perhaps it was her striking beauty that drew the unwanted attention of bullies like Russo and his gang. Mr. Reese, be cautious of Russo's subordinates. They are formidable, Lucas earnestly warned. As the son of a general, Lucas had received martial training from a young age, boasting significant strength, handling ordinary individuals. Even 100 at once was a manageable feat. However, when faced with Russo's subordinates, he couldn't endure beyond 3 moves. The gap in prowess was simply too significant. Rest assured, I know my limits. Wait here for our updates, Dustin assured with a confident smile. He briskly departed with Grace. In the car, Grace suddenly suggested, Logan, it's best to inform your father and let him handle it if we want to quickly resolve this matter. We can't involve Rufus for now. Dustin shook his head. He went on, if Rufus steps in, it might prematurely alert Russo. The Vern family is a prominent force in West Lucosia. They are connected to various factions. Even within the castle, many are in cahoots with the Vern family. He added, if I inform Rufus to settle this before he sets out, Russo and his group might receive word and slip away. In that case, dealing with this matter will become even more troublesome. We should take this matter into our own hands. Grace nodded in agreement. She said, that makes sense. If they're protected at high levels, capturing Russo could be challenging. If we take direct action first, catching Russo and then unraveling the rest of the criminal network becomes feasible. Also, the remnants of Dragon Guard are lurking in the shadows. Until we investigate their whereabouts, I can't meet Rufus too soon. Revealing our plans too early could have dire consequences, Dustin added with a serious expression on his face. There undoubtedly were spies of Dragon Guard within the castle. They could possibly even be Rufus' close aides. In such a perilous situation, he couldn't act rashly or he might expose his identity. Your thinking is meticulous. So, what's your plan? Grace inquired curiously. What's the plan? Dustin turned to look at Grace. He calmly stated, do I need to explain? Meet and beat. A good beating solves everything. Huh? Grace was slightly taken aback. That's your plan. What else? Dustin said earnestly. Grace's mouth twitched. She was momentarily rendered speechless. She wondered if a plan with no strategy. But just a straightforward confrontation was too reckless. Half an hour later, an SUV pulled up outside Russo Lounge. Dustin and Grace, adeptly disguised, emerged confidently. They were indifferent to the risk of their covers being blown. Russo Lounge, boasting a substantial size, had a line forming outside. Fortunately, Dustin and Grace navigated smoothly with the assistance of the undercover agents. They gained entrance without a hitch. Inside, the ambience was raucous. It was illuminated by dazzling lights. A crowd of people danced enthusiastically to the music, unleashing their fervor. Dustin's expression soured. He wasn't one to relish in such a raucous setting. Why is the bar scene not your usual haunt? Grace teased. I can only say that this place isn't my preference, Dustin replied. He'd prefer the serenity of home with a good book over the ordeal of such a locale. You should give it a shot sometime. Look at how joyously they dance, she suggested with a smile. The vibrant nightlife is but a fleeting spectacle. If everyone indulges in it, the nation won't prosper, he remarked casually. You're quite the killjoy. The people in West Lucosia are presently enjoying peace and prosperity. Isn't that a positive development? Grace countered. Peace and prosperity are indeed commendable, but we mustn't forget where we come from. The current success of West Lucosia is thanks to the sacrifices of our ancestors. If even descendants of heroes like Lucas are being mistreated without any justice, we need to address the underlying issues. After achieving success, too many challenges emerge, Dustin asserted with a serious demeanor. Amidst their conversation, the undercover agent beside them discreetly pointed to a spot on the second floor. Look, that's Russo. Dustin followed the indication. He spotted a flamboyantly styled young man with earrings seated in a booth on the second floor. Russo sported a slick-back hairstyle and an earring. He was joyfully indulging in drinks with a vibrant group of friends. Two attractive women accompanied each person. Amidst the revelry, there were playful interactions. It added to the lively and enjoyable atmosphere. You stay at the entrance. If anything unusual happens, inform us immediately. Dustin instructed the undercover agent. With that, Dustin led Grace toward the second floor. However, they were intercepted at the staircase by two muscular bodyguards. Upstairs is a private area. Outsiders aren't allowed, one of the bodyguards declared. I'm here to see Russo. There's something we need to discuss, Dustin calmly stated. You know Mr. Vern. The bodyguard scrutinized him suspiciously. What's it to you? Dustin coldly scanned them. His haughty demeanor managed to unnerve the two bodyguards. After all, those who associated with Russo were either affluent, heirs, or influential personalities. The fact that Dustin casually addressed Russo by name hinted at his non-ordinary status. Wait a moment. I'll inform Mr. Vern. One of the bodyguards ascended and relayed a message to Russo before gesturing toward Dustin. Russo glanced at Dustin. His gaze lingered on Grace's alluring figure. Despite the disguise, Grace, who topped the beauty ranking list, still possessed significant magnetism for men. Let them come up. Russo nodded. Numerous individuals came to pay their respects to him each day. From Russo's perspective, Dustin and Grace appeared to be seeking favor. While he typically had no interest in such encounters, the woman, in particular, had a certain uniqueness. She radiated an enticing charm. Mr. Vern invites you both to come upstairs. The bodyguard returned, extending an invitation gesture. Dustin wordlessly ascended the stairs. Then he sat across from Russo with his legs casually crossed. Russo's irritation flared at this unabashed display. Hey, kid, who do you think you are? Did I invite you to sit? He glared at Dustin, visibly annoyed. Are you Russo? Dustin inquired straightforwardly, pouring himself a drink. Outrageous. Bold? How dare you address Mr. Vern directly? Are you out of your mind? The entourage erupted in protest before Russo could respond. There were the sons of officials. They formed their own hero alliance. They often acted recklessly with a reputation that discouraged any challenges. I'm asking you, are you Russo? Destin was unfazed. He took a sip and repeated the question. You little anticipating a reaction. Russo raised his hand to halt his companion. He then sneered, Kid, do you know who you're talking to? Calling me by my name, do you have a death wish? It seems that you are Russo. Destin nodded, placing his glass down. He continued, I'm asking you, where's Lisa Ashen? What's with Lisa Ashen? I've never heard of her. Russo lounged against the couch with his arms outstretched, wearing a superior smirk. Kid, the way you talk suggests that you're not here for a casual drink, but rather itching for a confrontation. Russo's bodyguards suddenly reached for their holsters as he spoke. Their handguns were faintly visible. Lisa Ashen, Lucas' sister and General Leo's daughter, Destin stated coldly. Some time ago, you coveted Lisa's beauty. Failing to win her over, you kidnapped her. You not only burned down the Ashen residence, but also caused the death of Mrs. Ashen. Do you remember any of this? Oh, so that woman is called Lisa Ashen. It rings a bell. Russo smirked. You're right. I did burn down the Ashen residence. I kidnapped Lisa. But so what? Are you here to defend the Ashen family? I'll give you a chance. Release Lisa immediately, and I might spare your life, Destin said coldly. Spare my life. Russo burst into laughter. Did you all hear that? This kid wants to spare my life. I'm so scared. The surrounding people joined in laughter, viewing Destin as a fool. Russo was born into a great family and was a member of the Hero Alliance. He had an immense influence. This audacious kid seemed oblivious to the gravity of the situation. Kid, it seems that you have a connection with Lisa. Is she your girlfriend? Russo grinned and taunted, speaking of her. She has a unique fragrance, like a spirited horse. When we had our turn, everyone took a shot. I don't know if she survived. If she did, I might show mercy and let you have a turn too, ha. At this point, Russo continued to laugh. He dismissed Destin entirely. You're asking for it. Destin finally snapped. He grabbed Russo's hair and forcefully slammed his head onto the table. The room echoed with a thunderous crash as Destin forcefully drove Russo's head beneath the shattered remnants of the glass table. Blood adorned Russo's face, and his cries of pain reverberated through the room. A wave of surprise seized everyone. They were taken aback by the audacious assault on Russo. They tried to process the events. They wondered if Destin possessed a death wish by taking on Russo. Russo, a scion of the great family with immense influence, commanded utmost respect. Even a slight disrespect risked catastrophic consequences. They thought that this kid was undoubtedly audacious. I'll ask again, where is Lisa? Destin demanded. His grip on Russo was unwavering. An ominous air enveloped him. Russo's face was adorned with glass shards. He winced in pain, rendering his ordinary features even more grotesque. Damn it, how dare you touch me? Do you know who I am? Do you know who my dad is? He bellowed. His voice was strained and furious. Bastard, I warn you. Let go, or I'll kill your whole family. Kill my family. Destin snorted and delivered a stinging slap to Russo's face. The impact rattled Russo, embedding glass fragments into his flesh and intensifying the flow of blood. The excruciating pain prompted Russo to scream involuntarily. What are you all waiting for? Slaughter this kid for me. Russo shouted at his bodyguards. You dare lay a hand on Mr. Vern? You're asking for death. The bodyguards were now alert. They swiftly drew their guns and aimed at Destin. Destin grabbed Russo's hair and lifted him as a shield from the barrels pointed at him. Don't shoot. Be careful. He's holding me hostage. Russo quivered in fear at the sight of the black muzzles. He screamed to avoid being mistakenly shot. The bodyguards exchanged glances. Ultimately, they abandoned their firearms for batons and advanced aggressively. Although they were trained elites, the bodyguards' attacks seemed like child's play to Destin. With a casual wave of his hand, A series of resounding slaps echoed. The bodyguards crumpled to the ground, blood streaming from their noses and mouths. Damn! The crowd was shocked by Dustin's unexpected prowess. Who would have thought he could effortlessly deal with Russo's close protectors? They thought that Dustin was an elite. "You, who the hell are you?" Russo shouted, his voice filled with rage. "I'm the nemesis you folks have been waiting for. Now, surrender Lisa immediately, or I'll make you wish you were dead," Dustin declared coldly. "You dare." Russo snarled menacingly. He added, "Listen up, you bastard. My father is a high-ranking general, commanding thousands of troops in Celestria. He's in a crucial position, trusted by the Prince of West Lucosia. If you mess with me, my father will annihilate you and your entire lineage." "Is that so? I'd love to see how formidable your dad really is." Dustin snorted. He gripped Russo's elbow and snapped it with a crisp crack. The bone broke through the skin, horrifying the crowds. After a moment of stunned silence, Russo screamed in pain. A noble scion shouted angrily, "You've really done it now. You won't find refuge anywhere in Celestria." A crash echoed through the air. In a swift motion, Dustin's hand propelled the noble scion several feet away. He crashed heavily into the wall with an uncertain fate. The remaining nobles wore expressions of shock, but refrained from expressing their anger. Dustin's martial prowess was apparent. They had no choice but to bide their time and suppress their indignation when faced with such a formidable opponent. Some astute individuals had already discreetly summoned reinforcements, anticipating Dustin's imminent demise. "You wretch! How dare you break my hand? You're dead. Your whole family is dead?" Russo's face contorted as he roared furiously. "I won't just break your hand. I'm going to break your leg too." Dustin showed no mercy. He raised his foot and stomped forcefully on Russo's knee. A resounding snap followed. Russo's knee bent in an unnatural direction. He let out a louder scream and writhed on the ground in pain. "Where's Lisa? Hand her over," Dustin demanded, ripping Russo's hair and lifting his upper body. "I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. If you refuse, I'll castrate you right here. You dare." Russo gritted his teeth with a menacing tone. Dustin chuckled and reached for a fruit knife with a swift motion. He pointed it at Russo's groin. No. I'll talk. I'll spill everything," Russo exclaimed in fear. He finally relented and pleaded for mercy. He went on, "Come on, man. She's just a woman. Why go through all this trouble? If you're into her, I'll just give her to you. Where is she?" Dustin, uninterested in Russo's rambling, pressed the fruit knife against Russo's manhood. I don't know where Lisa is." Russo shook his head. He quickly changed his tune as he felt the cold blade. "Although I don't know where she is, one of my gang members surely does. I'll call him right now and have him bring her over." "Call now," Dustin said coldly. All right, I'll call." Russo didn't hesitate. He took out his phone and dialed the number. "Hey, is that girl named Lisa still alive?" "Yes, her. Bring her to me immediately and make sure she's safe. Remember, she must be safe." The last 4 words were emphasized, clearly carrying a veiled threat. Dustin was well aware of these manipulations, but he paid them no mind. Whether it was Russo, the Hero Alliance, the Verne family, or their backers, anyone involved in this matter would be eliminated. 10 minutes later, the lively music in the bar came to an abrupt halt. The lights suddenly brightened, and a team of enforcers in suits efficiently started clearing the space. Within minutes, all the bar's customers were escorted outside. The previously vibrant atmosphere was hushed. Who dares to be so audacious, causing trouble on the Verne family turf? With a furious shout, a bald man in a flowery suit strode in, accompanied by dozens of followers. The bald man was burly and possessed a fierce demeanor. A flower tattoo adorned his head, giving him a unique look. "Great, Rowan Archer is here. Mr. Verne might have a chance now. I heard Rowan used to be a captain in the Black Dragon Army, but he was dismissed for violating regulations. Now he's a top enforcer for the Vern family. He's fierce and formidable. Of course, a captain from the Black Dragon Army isn't ordinary. The number of people who've died at Rowan's hands over the years, if not 1,000, must be close. This is going to be interesting. Rowan's presence sparked discussions among the nobles present. The initial tension and panic dissipated. It was replaced by mockery and amusement. In their eyes, Dustin was already a dead man. As for the manner of his death, it all depended on Rowan's preferences. "Rowan, quick, save me!" Russo yelled as reinforcements arrived. "Huh?" Rowan squinted, visibly surprised. "Mr. Vern, how did you get into this mess? Damn it, it's all this guy's doing." Russo pointed at Dustin with resentment. "This audacious punk dared to break my limbs. Today, you must help me seek revenge. Rest assured, Mr. Vern, anyone who harms you won't leave this place today." Rowan said solemnly, "You wretch. The Vern family's reinforcements are here. Even if you have supernatural abilities, you won't escape death today." Russo grinned menacingly. "Of course, I can give you a chance if you don't want to die. Just kneel, bow to me, and maybe I'll spare your life." Dustin's actions had sealed his fate. However, before killing him, Russo intended to humiliate his opponent to vent his pent-up anger. "Where's the girl?" Dustin asked coldly. He ignored Russo and looked at Rowan. "The girl." Rowan suddenly laughed. "Kid, you're struggling with your own survival. Yet, you're concerned about others. If you don't hand her over, not only Russo, but also the Vern family, including all of you, will face destruction." Dustin's eyes were icy. HMPH, such arrogance. "Do you have the capability to destroy the Vern family?" Rowan sneered repeatedly. "You'll find out soon enough," Dustin replied. "You arrogant brat. I think you won't shed tears until you see your coffin. Men, kill him." Rowan raised his hand, issuing a direct kill order. "Kill." Following Rowan's command, dozens of Vern family guards drew their swords. They advanced to surround Dustin. Then, a shocking scene unfolded. Dustin extended his sword finger and lifted it upward. As if controlled by an invisible force, all the weapons in the guards' hands were released and floated into the air. "Huh?" Everyone was stunned. They glanced at their empty hands and then at the floating weapons above. They were momentarily at a loss and wondered what had just happened. Just as everyone was bewildered, Dustin turned his hand. The floating knives changed direction. They pointed their tips at the Vern family guards. "Go!" Dustin pointed his sword finger across the air. Dozens of steel blades shot out. They aimed diagonally at the Vern family guards. In an instant, blood sprayed and cries filled the air. The once formidable family guards now lay on the ground. Some were missing hands and legs and were unable to stand. What is happening? Everyone was shocked at what they just witnessed. Their eyes widened. They couldn't believe it. With just a wave of his hand, Dustin had disarmed them all. Also, with a gentle touch of his finger, he had manipulated the weapons to attack the guards. They could not help but wonder if Dustin was even a human at that point. Damn, who is this guy? He's so powerful. A move disarming all Vern family guards is terrifying. Trouble is brewing tonight. The group of noble scions was astonished. They exchanged astonished whispers. Even Russo was dumbfounded, finding it hard to believe. "You knew object manipulation arts. Who the heck are you?" Rowan furrowed his brow. He assumed a stance that indicated that he was confronting a formidable adversary. The art of object manipulation was one of the 8 miraculous arts. It was an exceptionally rare skill beyond the reach of ordinary martial artists. Typically, those proficient in this art controlled 1 or 2 weapons at most. However, Dustin's ability to manipulate dozens of blades simultaneously was unheard of, making it evident that he was no ordinary opponent. "You don't even qualify to ask for my name," Dustin retorted coldly. "Being a former captain of the Black Dragon Army and now working as a lackey here. You've truly brought shame to the Black Dragon Army." "Shut up! Who do you think you are? How dare you dictate to me? Even if you're skilled in object manipulation arts, so what? Countless extraordinary individuals have died under my blade, and today will be no exception. Prepare to die. Rowan was furious and embarrassed. He drew his sword. With a couple of quick steps and a powerful leap, he aimed a formidable strike at Dustin's head. Thanks to the resources provided by the Vern family, Rowan was now halfway to becoming a grandmother. Once he unleashed his swordsmanship, even facing a grandmother martial artist would not be a challenge. Ignorant fool. Dustin snorted and pointed his finger into the air. A white light shot out and pierced through Rowan's body. Ah! Rowan screamed. He fell from the sky in a chaotic tumble, as though he was struck mid-air. A fist-sized hole appeared between his chest and abdomen. Blood spurted out incessantly. Huh? The crowd erupted in shock once again. Rowan, renowned and powerful, a former captain of the Black Dragon Army and a top enforcer for the Vern family, had been defeated with a single move. It seemed beyond belief. How can you be so strong? Are you a grandmother martial artist? Rowan asked shakily as he clutched his wound. In West Lucosia, where martial arts were highly regarded, there were many martial artist masters, but individuals as young as Dustin who reached the level of a grandmother were extremely rare. Such prodigies were usually either intensely cultivated by the military or fiercely sought after by major aristocratic families. They couldn't stay unknown. I'll ask one last time, where is she? Dustin's eyes remained cold. Rowan remained silent. He directed his gaze toward Russo. What? Why are you looking at me? He's asking you. Russo, pale and trembling, stammered. When Rowan and his men had arrived, Russo had thought victory was assured. In the blink of an eye, Rowan, along with the Vern family guards, now lay dead or injured. They were unable to stand. It was at this moment that Russo realized he had kicked a hornet's nest. The person you're looking for is in the Hero Alliance's basement. Rowan replied. Lead the way. Dustin didn't waste any words. Rowan nodded. He staggered to his feet, aware that Dustin had spared his life intentionally. Otherwise, he would have been a dead man by now. And you. Dustin grabbed Russo by the hair, lifting him up. Sir, if he can guide you, do I really have to go? Look at my broken hands and feet. I can't move easily, Russo pleaded with a mournful expression. You don't have to go if you don't want to. But then, you'll die here, Dustin said with a frigid gaze. No, I'll go. All right. Russo agreed repeatedly in a panic. Ultimately, they proceeded toward the Hero Alliance's headquarters with Dustin grabbing Russo. In the northern part of Millsburg, the headquarters of the Hero Alliance stood prominently. This alliance consisted of affluent and profligate young, noble scions from West Lucosia who had come together. Their interactions were characterized by shared interests. In times of trouble, they offered mutual assistance. They possessed considerable influence that deterred most from challenging them. In their social circle, their call resonated with a resounding response. Within the assembly hall of the Hero Alliance, a group of extravagant profligates embraced their companions. They were immersed in a combination of drinks and dance. Various tables were adorned with unmentionable substances. As the festivities continued, some of them even leaned down, inhaling the mysterious white powder on the tables. Their bodies trembled instantly. Their pupils dilated. Their faces were filled with ecstasy as their mouths adorned with foolish smiles. It was as though they had entered a hallucinatory realm and were unable to extricate themselves. The scene unfolded as a chaotic blend of men and women indulged in either the white powder or participating in lewd activities. This wasn't merely a gathering hall. It resembled more of a den of profligacy. Mr. Linden, something's not right. At that moment, a guy in white rushed in, looking visibly nervous. How many times do I have to tell you to call me president? A muscular man lounged lazily on the couch, enjoying the company of a woman beneath him. This man was Aster Linden, the president of the Hero Alliance. He was a prominent figure among these affluent profligates. President, it's a disaster. A major disaster. The man in white spoke urgently. Someone broke into the Hero Alliance, kidnapped Mr. Vern, and is heading this way. What should we do? Aster furrowed his brow, suddenly sitting up. Who's bold enough to intrude on the Hero Alliance? Have they grown tired of living? I don't know who it is, but they're really powerful. Our Hero Alliance guards couldn't stop them. The man in white swallowed nervously. If he hadn't run fast, he'd likely be in the same state as those guards who were missing their limbs. Damn it, daring to cause trouble on our turf. Even if it's the king himself, he'll die here today. Aster slammed the table. He roared, "Stop fooling around. Grab your weapons." His authority was imposing. With just one shout, most of the profligates snapped out of their stupor. The few still laughing foolishly were rewarded with a couple of slaps from Aster, bringing them back to reality. Grab your weapons. The profligates didn't hesitate, immediately activating a mechanism. Suddenly, a wall split open, revealing a hidden chamber filled with various weapons. On the left, there were cold weapons such as knives, spears, and swords. On the right, there were firearms such as handguns, rifles, sniper rifles, and even to anti-tank rocket launchers. The room was like an armory, packed with all sorts of weapons. Most of the affluent profligates chose firearms, while a few picked up blades just for show. As they prepared for action, a loud explosion echoed. The assembly hall's door burst open into pieces. Following that, Dustin entered single-handedly with Russo in tow. He walked confidently. Behind them were Grace and the injured Rowan. Who the hell are you? How dare you cause trouble in the Hero Alliance? Who gave you the guts? Aster looked ferocious as he held a spray can in both hands with a cigarette dangling from his mouth. Behind him, more than a dozen profligates raised their guns. They aimed at Dustin. "Mr. Linden, save me." Russo's eyes lit up as though he had seen hope. "Mr. Vern, how did you get into this state? What the hell happened?" Aster was momentarily stunned as he looked at the battered Russo. With severed hands and feet, a face marred by glass shards, and blood flowing freely, Russo looked downright miserable. "Mr. Linden, this matter is complicated." "You must take this guy down right away," Russo yelled. "Release Mr. Vern, or I'll blow you to bits," warned Aster with a fierce edge to his voice. "Where's Lisa?" Dustin spoke coldly. His expression remained unchanged. "Who the heck is Lisa? I've never heard of her." "I command you to release him, or I'll spray you." Aster pressed back on the gun, the bullets loading with a metallic click. "Mr. Linden, this thing has serious firepower. Be careful not to hit me accidentally." Russo's eyes widened in fear. It was a shotgun, commonly known as a sprayer or the Great Equalizer. One shot unleashed hundreds of steel balls with immense power and caused wide-ranging destruction. If Aster fired, there was a high chance of collateral damage. "Mr. Vern, rest assured, my marksmanship is precise. I guarantee you won't get hurt." Aster exuded confidence. Marksmanship. Russo's lips twitched, momentarily at a loss for words. He didn't think that Aster possessed marksmanship of any kind with hands that couldn't even hold a gun steadily. He felt that anything Aster could hit would depend entirely on luck. He thought that if the sprayer missed, Aster might as well gouge out his own eyes. "I'll ask one last time, where's Lisa?" Dustin grabbed Russo by the throat. His patience was wearing thin. In the basement of the assembly hall." Russo pointed downward as his face turned red. "Open the basement and release her." Dustin's voice was stern. "Fuck, you think you can just order us around? Who do you think you are?" Aster glared, his eyes wide. Irritating. Dustin's eyes turned cold as he pointed a finger. There was a loud bang, and Aster's body sailed through the air as if colliding with a truck. He crashed heavily into the wall, blood sprayed from his mouth and nose, and he wailed in agony. The sudden turn of events left everyone in shock. No one could quite grasp what had just happened. They had only witnessed Dustin raising his hand, and Aster was sent flying. It was downright eerie. Aster was curled up on the ground. He roared, "Why the heck are you all standing there? Shoot this guy. Kill him." "President, Mr. Vern is still in his hands." The profligates hesitated. "Stop the nonsense. I told you to shoot, so shoot him." Aster shouted in frustration, "Fire! Fire!" The profligates exchanged glances, ultimately making a decision. The intruder was already here. They couldn't just swallow their pride. As for Russo, it was best if he stayed alive. But if he didn't, he couldn't blame them. The dense gunfire echoed in the assembly hall. Sparks flew, and shell casings scattered. The profligates initially believed they were having a grand time. They assumed Dustin was as good as dead. However, they were dumbfounded by the sight before them. Dustin stood quietly amidst the hail of bullets, completely unfazed. In front of him, a semi-transparent force field appeared. The bullets struck the force field, creating a cacophony of pops and clatters. Despite the apparent commotion, the force field remained unscathed. Upon contact, the bullets morphed and fell to the ground, utterly ineffective. In that critical moment, Dustin assumed the role of an untouchable, otherworldly being. Despite the relentless firing and assaults from the profligates, not a single scratch landed on him. The two sides seemed to exist in different worlds, as though they were separated by an insurmountable chasm. What in the world? The profligates gazed at the strewn shell casings and the seemingly unaffected Dustin. They stood frozen with their faces etched with disbelief. They held their firearms, struck dumb in amazement. They had never imagined such a spectacle. Even an elephant would be turned into a hornet's nest with their firepower. They wondered how Dustin was left completely unscathed. What's happening? What's that force shield? Good grief, he can even evade bullets. Is this guy a human or a ghost? The profligates were in a state of panic and fear. Some were trembling so violently that their guns dropped to the ground. While they had encountered numerous martial artists, some formidable enough to deflect attacks, they had always safeguarded their vital points. Witnessing Dustin stand motionless and repel all assaults with a semi-transparent force shield was beyond their comprehension. They could not help but wonder how strong he was. Damn it, die! At this juncture, Aster emerged from a concealed room. He wielded an anti-tank rocket launcher and pressed the fire button aimed at Dustin. The rocket shot forth, trailing a fiery tail, hurtling directly toward Dustin. Dustin was unfazed. He extended a solitary hand, seizing the rocket's warhead and crushing it. A loud explosion ensued as the rocket detonated. Once the smoke dissipated, he stood unharmed, not a single scratch on him. Aster was dumbfounded, wearing an expression of disbelief. The rocket launcher in his hand clattered to the ground. In his current state, he trembled with fear, both mentally and physically. Aster wondered if Dustin was even human after witnessing him crush a rocket with bare hands. "You're overestimating yourself," Dustin snorted, pointing his finger once more. Another explosion sounded and Aster was sent airborne again. He crashed heavily into the wall, leaving a dent. Half of his body was embedded in the wall, with only his limbs protruding. It resembled a pitiful painting on the wall. "Open the basement." Dustin spoke again. "Hurry, open it." The profligates, as if awakening from a dream, hastened to press the mechanism. With a muffled roar, a bookshelf by the left wall suddenly rotated. It revealed a dim passage. The passage descended with clear steps. Every few feet was adorned with an oil lamp. "Lead the way." Dustin held onto Russo and proceeded down the passage. At the end of the passage was a locked iron door. Upon opening it, a foul odor immediately assailed their senses. Dustin frowned but remained silent. He stepped inside. On the other side of the iron door was a spacious underground chamber. It was roughly 600 square feet in size. As soon as he stepped inside the basement, Dustin's face went cold. There were dozens of iron cages scattered throughout the basement, each holding one or two teenage girls. The girls, all stripped to the waist, wore expressions of pure terror. Most of them were covered in bruises, cuts, and other signs of abuse. It was a pitiful sight to behold. Two of the cages held the bodies of two young girls. They were curled in a fetal position. Their stench wafted through the air. They were left alone for too long, and their bodies had already become food for vicious rats. The sight ignited a surge of anger within Dustin. Are you responsible for bringing all these people here? His gaze turned sharply toward Russo. No, I swear it's not me, Russo stammered, gesturing frantically. He explained, Aster is the one behind this. He has a twisted obsession, deriving pleasure from tormenting these girls. Every month, he captures one or two slaves and locks them in the basement. It just piled up over time. You're all despicable for treating others as slaves. You deserve to die. Dustin gritted his teeth and exuded an aura of intense fury. I truly had nothing to do with this. I'm an innocent civilian. Russo nervously protested. Where's Lisa? Dustin, uninterested in unnecessary conversation, cut to the chase. In over there, Russo stammered, trembling as he pointed toward a corner. Dustin followed his finger, observing a metal cage tucked in the corner. Inside, a disheveled girl covered in bruises huddled. She was shivering. Around her neck, a dog collar was fastened, and her eyes were blindfolded with a black cloth. She had been brutally raped, and the lower part of her body was covered in blood. You monster! Dustin exclaimed. After seeing Lisa's plight, he grabbed Russo by the throat and pinned him against the wall. Russo begged, Don't kill me. I know I did something wrong. I'm sorry. Killing you like this is just too easy on you. I'll make sure your existence becomes a living nightmare. Dustin's face turned into a grim mask as he suddenly moved. He grabbed Russo's lower region and squeezed it hard. There was a loud crack as Russo's manhood ruptured. It was reduced to a shredded mass of flesh. Russo emitted a haunting scream. He foamed at the mouth and convulsed. His head tilted before he fainted. Dustin tossed Russo to the ground and then walked over to the iron cage. With a gentle touch, he pulled open the cage door. He softly called out, Lisa, is it you? Lisa was scared. She pleaded, Please don't hit me. I know I was wrong. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I'm a friend of your brother. Lucas, I'm here to rescue you, Dustin reassured her, swiftly revealing his identity. Lucas. Lisa's entire body tensed. Slowly lifting her head, she trembled and stammered, You really know my brother. Absolutely. Your brother is outside waiting for you. I'll get you out right away. Dustin removed the chains and unfastened the collar. He then took off his jacket and draped it over Lisa. Can I really get out alive? Lisa asked, her body still tense. Her hands gripped the jacket tightly, conveying her fear and uncertainty. At that moment, it was almost surreal for her to believe that she was truly being rescued. I promise, I will ensure your safe escape. Dustin's tone was solemn. What about them? Lisa nervously looked around in concern. In the underground room, dozens of teenage girls were locked up. All of them were forcibly brought here and were subjected to all kinds of torture. Just like her. They were all unfortunate souls. Fear not. I am committed to rescuing each and every one of them, Dustin asserted with a grave expression. He went on, While I cannot erase the suffering you've endured, I solemnly vow, in the name of Logan, to ensure those perpetrators face the consequences they rightly deserve. Dustin walked out angrily as he emerged from the underground chamber. He noticed that the profligates in the meeting hall were sprawled on the floor, writhing in agony. Meanwhile, Grace stood silently near the entrance. These guys never learn. They were just about to ambush me, so I gave them a little lesson, she said. Too lenient, he remarked, scanning the room. All the profligates had only lost a leg. It was a trivial consequence compared to the atrocities they committed. How about Lisa? Have you found her? she asked. I found her in the basement. But she's not alone. There are dozens of innocent girls, he responded with a grim expression. Huh? What's going on? Grace asked, puzzled. You'll know when you see it for yourself, Dustin replied without further explanation. Grace nodded and headed into the basement. Dustin then pulled out his phone and dialed a number. After a moment, Rodrigo entered with several female undercover agents, each carrying two suitcases. Following the incident of the Dragon Guard ambush, Rodrigo's loyalty and effectiveness garnered Dustin's approval. This time, upon returning to West Lucosia, Dustin chose to keep him by his side. Your Highness, the items you requested are ready for your inspection. Rodrigo bowed and gestured for the female undercover agents to open the suitcases. Inside were various women's clothes. There are many girls imprisoned in the basement. Dress them in these clothes and arrange a safe place for them, Dustin instructed. Yes, Rodrigo acknowledged, immediately setting the plan into motion. At that moment, Grace emerged from the basement. Her face was unusually grim. It was accompanied by unrestrained anger. Grace's fury was unmistakable as she declared, "These despicable animals treated people as slaves. It's a heinous crime." As a woman, she felt a deeper sense of empathy. In this sunless place, these girls not only endured violations, but also suffered inhumane torture daily. They were stripped of dignity and freedom and were living worse than dogs. Also, I just found out that these monsters would ruthlessly kill their parents and relatives after kidnapping the girls to avoid trouble. Dustin said solemnly, "What? That's outrageous." Grace's eyes widened, almost spewing fire. One, these heartless creatures, killing innocent lives without mercy, deserve to die. In her anger, she kicked one of the profligates nearby. Yes, they deserve to die, Dustin said. His eyes were filled with killing intent, but his face was surprisingly calm. To him, these profligates were already as good as dead. Your Highness, all the girls are safely in the car. Any further instructions? Rodrigo approached again. At this point, the girls from the basement had changed into the provided clothes and were seated in the vehicles waiting outside. Dustin's voice rang out, filled with an unyielding determination. Bring out the leaders. Aster and Russo. The rest can be killed. Understood, Rodrigo responded promptly. His blade rose to cleanse the room of its corrupt occupants. Chaos erupted in the meeting hall. Cries, please, and threats filled the air as the entitled profligates faced their impending demise. Please, spare my life. I'm wealthy, incredibly wealthy. Name your price, and I'll pay whatever you want. You punk. My dad is a deputy general with a vast army. If you harm me, he'll shred you into pieces. Good sir, spare my life. It's a mistake. As long as you let me go today, I promise unimaginable wealth and prosperity. Faced with the imminent threat of life and death, the once arrogant profligates now wore expressions of fear and panic. At that moment, their former audacity had been completely stripped away. However, Dustin remained unmoved. He observed silently. Rodrigo and the undercover agents showed no mercy. Their blades were relentless in cleansing lives tainted with corruption. These profligates had become parasites in West Lucosia, abusing their power and committing heinous acts. Such scum needed to be eradicated. After the slaughter, the profligates lay in a pool of blood. None was spared. Dustin glanced at the plaque above that Red Hero Alliance. He found it bitterly ironic. Set it ablaze. Burn it all, Dustin coldly ordered, then turned away. Soon, flames roared. It engulfed the Hero Alliance's headquarters. The surviving profligates, who were barely clinging to life, were consumed by the fire. As the fire intensified, it devoured the den of filth, leaving no trace behind. Dustin and his group departed discreetly. After ensuring the safety of the innocent girls, he and Lisa proceeded to the agreed-upon coffee house. Lucas anxiously waited in the private room, unable to conceal his restlessness. Due to his limited mobility, he found himself with no other alternative but to endure a painful wait. He felt a great deal of distress. Lucas. The door swung open abruptly, revealing Lisa. Her eyes were filled with tears. Lisa, is it really you? Lucas trembled, almost unable to believe. Lucas, it's me. I'm back. Lisa's voice trembled as she rushed into her brother's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. All the pain and fear found release in that moment. It's good to be back. It's good, Lucas whispered, gently patting his sister's back. Lucas, I was so scared. So scared. I thought I'd never see you again. Lisa sobbed. She refused to let go of her brother. It's okay now. It's all over. From now on, I'll protect you, Lucas comforted. He was fully aware of the horrors his sister had endured. Although she had returned safely, the indelible scars of her ordeal would linger. Dustin closed the door quietly, allowing Lucas and Lisa the time and space they needed for their heartfelt reunion. For most people, the aftermath of such an experience would take a considerable amount of time to erase the haunting memories. Logan, what are your thoughts on what happened today? Grace asked, breaking the silence as she studied the man beside her. I'd eradicate every last scum like them if I could. His tone held an icy determination. She said solemnly, West Lucosia is larger than Oakvale. What occurred today is likely not an isolated incident. In places beyond our view, there may be more people suffering oppression and hardship. She went on, with your current abilities, you can save 1 or 2, maybe even 10 or 100. But you can't save thousands or tens of thousands. What do you mean? Dustin raised an eyebrow. I know you don't like authority and that you lean more toward the martial world. But some things require a high position. Vermin like those cannot be eradicated with personal strength alone, Grace reminded. I understand your point, but I'm not thinking about that right now. He shook his head. You may not be thinking about it, but you should be prepared. West Lucosia is in chaos, and you need to shoulder this responsibility, she said. The Prince of West Lucosia was critically ill, and the various factions within were already in turmoil. With the impending demise of the prince, chaos would not only engulf West Lucosia, but also the whole of Dragon Marsh. So, she hoped that Logan would ascend to the throne soon and suppress the petty factions. Talking about this now is useless. Our immediate concern is dealing with the remnants of the Dragon Guard. Dustin said, That's true. Grace nodded and said nothing afterward. After a while, the door to the private room opened again. Lucas and Lisa walked out shoulder to shoulder. They stood directly before Dustin. Thank you both for saving us. From now on, my sister and I are willing to be your humble servants to repay this great favor, Lucas said. He brought Lisa to express their gratitude. Mr. Ashen, please stop, Dustin quickly said. I greatly admired General Leo's character. When faced with such a situation, I couldn't just stand by. Moreover, those wastrels deserved severe punishment. What I did was merely to uphold justice, too. Whatever the case, you are our lifesavers. If you have any orders in the future, my sister and I will not hesitate to follow. Even if it means going through hell, Lucas said solemnly. All right, enough of these ominous words. Dustin patted his shoulder and advised, Mr. Ashen, go back and pack up. Given what happened, for your safety, it's best to leave Celestria immediately. Go somewhere else to lay low. After some time, I'll arrange for your return. Thank you, sir. Lucas nodded to Dustin and Grace again. He then quickly left with Lisa. Although he didn't know how Dustin had managed it, he was sure that he had offended Russo. With the Vern family's influence, retaliation would be severe. He was now a cripple and couldn't be of much help, so he could only take his sister somewhere safe for the time being. Russo and Aster are still in the trunk. How do you plan to deal with them? Grace suddenly asked after watching the Ashen siblings leave. Just killing them would be too easy for them, for committing such heinous acts. I want them to regret living in this world, Dustin spoke coldly. A hint of menace flashed in his eyes. be it the Vern family or the Linden family, regardless of their power. Whoever was involved in this matter would pay with their blood. Under the shroud of midnight, a sleek black SUV screeched to a sudden stop at the Vern residence. The car door swung open, tossing out a weighty burlap sack saturated in blood, potentially containing a person. "Hey, what the heck are you doing?" The guard stationed at the Vern residence entrance swiftly detected the anomaly and shouted at the vehicle. The black SUV roared to life, swiftly departing from the scene. The guards cautiously approached, nudging the sack with their feet. The burlap sack quivered, revealing a face stained with blood. It was Russo, who was severely injured and hovering on the brink of death. Help. Save me, please save me." Russo groaned, his life hanging by a thread. Upon closer scrutiny, the guard's expressions underwent a dramatic shift. "It's Mr. Russo. Quick, get him to the hospital." Without hesitation, the guards rushed the critically injured Russo to the hospital for immediate attention. Soon, the entire Vern family was plunged into turmoil. In the pre-dawn hours, they were at the hospital in the Celestria region. After hours of emergency treatment, Russo was finally wheeled out of the operating room.